Hey, this is Rob Britt, and this is episode 4 of the podcast for the recently diagnosed documentation slash vlog, video blog of my journey with Parkinson's disease. And as usual, I am not, none of this is none of this is reversed. None of this is rehearsed, as you can tell. And like I said, this is episode 4 of my podcast. And this episode, I want to talk about exercise. Exercise is one of the things that has been determined to be effective to slow the progression of Parkinson's disease. And I I attended a recent podcast from the PD podcast, which is about the Fox Foundation has a monthly podcast. Phew, this is not going great today, but okay, this is just how I am, so whatever. They do a podcast the third Thursday of the month at noon, and this one was about understanding Parkinson's and the effect of exercise on Parkinson. And one of the people on it, there's a panel of 4 people, usually a host and 3 guests, and I'll say sorry I didn't get everybody's name. The main, oh, that's nice and quiet, my AC unit just shut down, which is awesome. It means it'll be cool when I go back in the house. I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and it is just about the start of summer now. It's the beginning of June. Last week was unseasonably cool. We had temperatures in the 50s overnight, which is pretty unheard of, and also super comfortable. But now it's starting to actually seem like summer here in Charleston, so kind of warm, but it'll be nice and cool when I go in the house. So getting back on point, I was listening to the monthly podcast from the Parkinson's Foundation, the Fox Foundation, and listening to Dr. Daniel Corcos. It's C-O-R-C-O-S. I don't know why you'd need to know how to spell it, but there it is. And what he had recommended was doing cardiovascular training 3 to 4 times per week for 30 minutes at an 85% rate. So you want to look at what your age is to figure out your heart rate and your maximum heart rate, and what 85% is. So for me, I'm 60 years old, so it's pretty straightforward. It's straightforward to anybody who can do math, I guess. But if you take, the formula is 220 minus your age. So for me, that's 220 minus 60 is 100 and can I do math? Is 140. Sorry. Geez, that's bad. Maybe I should redo this. I'm not going to do it. So 220 minus your age is 160 for me, and that's my maximum heart rate. You want to multiply that by 0.85. So for me, that's 136 beats per minute. So that's a long way of getting to the fact that I want to kind of target that 136 beats per minute when I'm doing my cardiovascular training for 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week. So that can be an intimidating number, especially if you're further along in the journey than I am. And I know that I think that the reason that my progression has not been as quick as some people's, and again, so I'll do my disclaimer now. I'm not a doctor. I'm not clinical. Nothing I say is to be taken as advice. Anything that you do or any changes you make in your lifestyle, be it exercise or nutrition or whatever, you should discuss with your doctor or your movement specialist, whatever. I'm just telling you my own personal story and what's working for me and what's not working for me. And it's anecdotal, so but I am presenting facts from people who are clinical people. So when I present facts like this, 30 minutes at an 85% maximum rate, that's clinical information and is kind of generally accepted. Although there are some people who don't really accept that because some of this is also can be dependent on what your resting heart rate is. Like I have a really low resting heart rate, and that was what I was driving at the beginning of this little segment, is that because I have a lower resting heart rate, do I want to be at 85% of my max heart rate? I don't know. There's a study that was recently done which was working with Parkinson's patients on bicycles instead of like I use an elliptical trainer, which I hold on to. It has handles. I can either hold on to the side rails or the handles, which are pumping back and forth, so giving me a little upper body exercise as well. But the rate for the experiment that was done, or clinical trial that was done, looked at bicycling and going with 85 revolutions per minute, which is completely different than the 85% maximum heart rate. So I'm kind of looking at both of those and thinking, I want to get the best of both worlds. I ride my bike fairly often, and that's something that a lot of people with Parkinson's can do, because the balance issue generally with Parkinson's is a side-to-side issue rather than a front and back issue. So we are more likely to be able to ride a bicycle. So whether you're on a bicycle or whether you're on a recumbent bike or an upright exercise bike, this 85 revolutions per minute is still, kind of a golden zone or whatever, but still looking at doing 30 minutes for, 3 to 4 times per week. So that can be pretty intimidating, thinking, hey, 30 minutes, that's a long time. I don't know whether I can do that. You can break that down, and if you can do 5 minutes and do that 6 times a day, that adds up to 30 minutes. So, it's not exactly the same impact. I've been involved in fitness and nutrition for most of my life, mostly sort of as a gym rat, but my wife has certification in nutrition, and she was a personal trainer and certified through the ISSA. And so I've been on this journey for a long time, and possibly the reason that I have a slower, let me put my notes down because I don't want to gesture with papers in my hand. Maybe the reason that my progression has been slower is because I've been on this journey for a long time regarding fitness and trying to do cardiovascular training 3 times a week, and I've been doing that for 30 years, pretty much, more or less. And even prior to that, when I was in the military, doing PT 3 times a week, and we'd go on our runs and do push-ups and sit-ups and all the side straddle hops and everything else that went along with physical training in the military. So potentially, because of the fact that I've been doing this sort of cardiovascular and physical fitness training, may be why the progression of my disease has been a little bit slower. The first symptoms I had were about 4 years ago, which I've mentioned in other videos. I was out at dinner with a group from my work, and when I went to eat with my left hand, which my left hand is my more shaky side, I kind of had a quick flash of movement and threw a forkful of food on one of my coworkers, which I just laughed off at the time, but in my head I was going, what just happened there? That wasn't me, so what's going on? I recently watched the Michael J. Fox movie called Still, which is really a good movie and can give somebody insight if you don't know anything about Parkinson's or you're just starting this journey, where he said he woke up one day and his little finger was just like quaking or whatever, and he was like, what's going on? I didn't do that. It's acting on its own. So I threw this forkful of food and I sort of laughed it off. But I've had symptoms and I've had shaky hands for quite a long time, but it was always really minor up until, like I said, 3 or maybe 4 years ago, I started noticing that it was getting a little bit worse. But perhaps because I do a lot of training, cardiovascular training, maybe that's why my disease has progressed slower. It's a possibility. But again, the 30 minutes is a little bit intimidating. And also, like I go on an elliptical and I go on a stair climber at the gym. And maybe that's something you can't do, but there are other things perhaps you can do. Like I had mentioned, going on a recumbent bike. Recumbent bike is, it's a very stable thing, and you can hang on to the sides and you're just, pumping your feet, and you can look at your max heart rate, or you can look at the 85 beats per minute number, either one. So don't think about the 30 minutes necessarily as having to be all in one shot, although if you can do that, that's awesome. But other things you can look at is walking. I just got done taking my dog for a walk, and I walk her for about a mile a day, 2 separate walks, half a mile each, and she really enjoys that. She really bugs me until she gets an opportunity to go on her walk, and she'll dance around once she sees the leash come out. And it's really good for me. I think it's good for a lot of people that if you have a pet, the pet can actually help to drive you to get out of the house and do some stuff if you're able to do that. So don't just think about exercise as going running or getting on a treadmill necessarily. There's recumbent bikes, there's elliptical trainers, bicycling I mentioned. There's different sorts of exercises you can do. So there's like rock steady boxing, which is big in the Parkinson's disease. And a lot of that, you don't even have to go anywhere. You can do classes online. Now, of course, it's good to be among, fellow Parkinson's patients, that you can have the camaraderie and have a sense of community, and, not be feeling like you're in this by yourself. Like we all have our support people, or hopefully you have support people that are there for you. But really, unless somebody has Parkinson's, you aren't exactly, you don't have everything covered in your support person. And it's nice to be able to talk to other people and see how they're handling problems and challenges that you're handling. So it's great to have community. Online classes are great. If you can't make it out to an actual rock steady boxing session, or their yoga sessions, there's a lot of different activities that are specific exercises to address Parkinson's disease. A couple other things I wanted to talk about, which they talked about on that call, and I mentioned this. It's the third Thursday at noon. If you go to the Parkinson's Buddy Network, which you can get to that through the Fox Foundation website, there's a link for that. And if you go on that Buddy Network, there's links to, and they post about upcoming seminars. And like I said, they have them once a week. They talked about nutrition, and they talked about four kind of things to focus on to help with your Parkinson's. And one is addressing balance. I use a Bosu ball. If you're not familiar with the Bosu ball, it has a flat surface, and then the other side is a ball, so you can stand on the flat surface and kind of shift left and right, front, back, or you can kind of do circles on that. The other thing you can do is flip it so the flat side is down, and then you can stand on that inflated half ball side and do some, just balancing stuff. I always recommend, I don't know why I said I always recommend. This is the first time I'm talking about this, so I would recommend definitely, if you're on a Bosu ball, I have a pole in front of me at the gym that I use when I'm on the Bosu ball to make sure that I have a point of stability, that in case I would, lose my balance or whatever, that's helpful to have a pole to be able to grab a hold of course. So the four things they talked about were balance, strength. So strength resistance training, also good. I do go to the gym 3 days a week and do some resistance training. All that sort of thing is really good for you. Third thing is cardiovascular training, and fourth thing is flexibility. So try to pay attention to those four things. But today's podcast is about exercise. So hopefully you got some information out of this that you might find helpful. Some other points of note on my personal journey. Let me put my notes down so they don't blow away. On my personal journey, I just started my last appointment with my movement specialist for the clinical trial that I'm in. I talked to them, and I'm having a little bit of challenges with what they call executive function of my brain, where I don't have any trouble really with at this point in my life anyway, with doing my daily routine and thinking about things and being able to drive and being able to read and comprehension and all that sort of stuff. But my job as a software analyst, I have to do a lot of like, I have to look at things and do some judgment on interactions of files and stuff. And some of that is becoming a little bit more challenging as I move forward. So when I talked to my my doctor, he recommended, I'm at a point in this trial, it's an 18-month trial, and at the 6-month point, which is where I'm at now, I'm allowed to start taking the carbidopa, levodopa, and so I got prescription for Sinemet, and I am taking, the eventual target is for me to be taking that 3 times a day, and I'm starting out with taking a half of a pill once in the morning, and this is kind of to acclimate my body, I guess, because you know, one of the things for the Sinemet is that, which is just the brand name for the levodopa carbidopa, it's a little bit easier for me to say that, so I'll say Sinemet, to take is, so you have some stomach issues. That's the most common thing. I haven't had any issues with that, but it's starting out really slowly. I'm taking, last week I took a half a pill in the morning, that was it. Second week I'm taking a half a pill in the morning, half a pill at lunchtime, and then I'm done for a week. And then the third week I'm taking a half a pill 3 times a day, and then the fourth week I'm going up to the real prescription dosage, which is 1 pill 3 times a day. The half a pill doesn't seem to be really having any impact as far as my tremor, which you can see in my left hand. I didn't put it out there for any particular reason, just because I'm gesturing, but you can see I still have the tremor in the left hand much more than the right hand. So the half a pill twice a day really isn't doing anything to control the tremor, but it's not really supposed to. It's just getting my body used to it. So I'm really looking forward to eventually getting to the regular dosage of taking 1 pill 3 times a day. The executive function loss isn't impacting other things that I do. If you see in the background this fence that's behind me, I built that. I actually built about a 80-foot section of it 2 weeks ago. I had a lot of trouble, I don't know, it's kind of relative, but holding the screw in the driver, like I use a drill with a bit in it, and holding the driver and getting the screws in, a little bit of a challenge. So it took me longer than it did for the section that you can see now, which I built last year. That one went pretty quickly. My tremors weren't as bad then, but I'm saying a lot. Anyhow, moving on to my progression, hopefully that you know, the pills will help. Right now, it's not, the Parkinson's isn't affecting a lot of things that I do. If I have 2 solid points of contact, usually my tremor is much less noticeable. So, for example, I play bass in a rock band. The cognitive issue hasn't been a problem. It's a little tougher learning new songs. That's the only thing I've really noticed as far as that goes. But as far as playing, I have a solid grasp on the neck of my bass, so I have a solid point that my thumb is kind of, I want to say based on, even though I'm playing a bass, sorry. But I have a solid point of contact for that, and so playing and fretting the notes is okay. And on my right hand, which is my steady, really more steady hand, you know, I have a place where I keep my thumb solid, and then just am able to play pretty well. So far, so good. I have a pretty exciting thing coming up, is that I'm going to a bass camp with Victor Wooten. If you don't know who that is, it's not too surprising. People don't know bass players necessarily, but he's a pretty well-known bass player in the music community and plays all kinds of really amazing bass lines, and has been for a while. I'm going up to a bass camp with him, so I'll be spending a week along with, you know, another 20 people or whatever with Victor, talking about bass and playing bass. So that's a really exciting thing for me. I want to keep doing everything I can do as long as I can do it, and you know, that's the story for this week. If you like this video, you found some information in it that was helpful, feel free to subscribe, leave comments. I'll be happy to address any questions anybody has. Again, this is Rob Britt, and this is the podcast for the recently diagnosed. Thanks, and have a great day.